When he came out and told his story, that was like, you know, oh my God, because obviously Drake Bell is very famous. And so that was like the big, like, whoa moment. We have this big celebrity coming out here and telling the truth about what happened to him. But I found it interesting how they just happened to gloss over the fact that Drake Bell himself pled guilty to attempted endangering of children and disseminating matter harmful to juveniles. And when I tell you they glossed the hell over this in the documentary, I watched it and I was like, what's going on? Like something, it just didn't sit right with me. So I did a little bit of research myself. So I just want to play that little clip from the documentary so you can kind of see how they glossed over it and kind of minimized it and didn't quite explain it. And you can be the judge.
Well, there was definitely a slow decline in my mental health and sobriety. I mean, DUIs, behaviors that were happening because I was lost.
Nickelodeon's Drake Bell is arrested in California, accused of driving under the influence. Former Nickelodeon star Drake Bell was convicted and sentenced for child endangerment.
Drake Bell pled guilty to charges related to inappropriate text messages he sent to a minor, but he was not charged for doing anything physical.
I want to pause it there. You see how she made sure to make the caveat that he was not charged with doing anything physical? He was not charged with doing anything physical. Keep that in mind.
He was sentenced to 2 years of probation and 200 hours of community service.
I took responsibility for that. You know, I did what was asked of me. Like, the media grabbed a hold of so much misinformation.
Misinformation? So it's the media who's taking hold of misinformation, all right? This is how they're framing this in the documentary. They throw in real quick that he was pled guilty to child endangerment. Okay, they didn't add the part about disseminating matter harmful to juveniles because he was also charged and pled guilty to that. And then they have one of the women who throughout the documentary was like hardline about all of the problematic behavior in Hollywood and in Nickelodeon specifically. They have her do the dirty work and come in and say, but he wasn't charged with anything physical. Now, I don't know how they edited it. Maybe she explained it more thoroughly and they edited it that way. But the way they presented it in the documentary, they glossed the fuck over it. And it left me feeling confused. And I'm a pretty a sharp whippersnapper. So baby girl went and did a little bit of research and I'm going to share what I found out. And let me tell you, it's so much worse than how they tried to present it in the documentary. In 2021, Drake Bell pled guilty to attempted endangering of children and disseminating matter harmful to juveniles. The victim in the case was 15 years old. 15 years old. In 2021, Drake Bell was 32. She was 15. And the investigation revealed that Bell had been talking to this victim since she was 12. According to the story, once Bell found out her age, because how could you tell that you were talking to a 12-year-old? I mean, that's not, these 12-year-olds these days, they're almost indistinguishable from adults, I guess. You were a 29-year-old man talking to a 12-year-old, and it took you 3 years to figure out that she was underage? According to the story, once he found out her age, the defense claims that he stopped engaging with her, telling her to, quote, hurry up, stop smiling at me. First when I read it, I was like, what the hell does that mean? And she explains it, hurry up, meaning hurry up and turn of age. And don't smile at me because You're too young to be smiling at me like that. You're tempting me. You know them 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds and 15-year-olds, they be so tempting to these grown men. You know that, right? That's what he meant by that weird-ass, creepy-ass statement. So that's what his defense says. And that's what they said in the documentary. Oh, well, once I found out how old she was, I immediately stopped. And, again, you couldn't tell that she was fucking 12 when you first started talking to her? And why the fuck are you talking to a 12-year-old? Not to mention that in the victim's impact statement, we find out that the way she connected with Belle was because her aunt knew Belle in some capacity, and the aunt made the connection. So you mean to tell me when this lady showed up with her 12-year-old niece to meet you, you couldn't tell she was a fucking kid? And that it took you 3 years to wake up to that reality? 3 years of communicating with this little girl. However, according to the victim's impact statement, which she read at the hearing, she claimed that Belle was well aware of her age when he sent her these, quote, blatantly sexual messages, end quote. She also alleged that he sent her images, quote, of his body and his genitalia, end quote. She further claimed that at an October 2017 concert, he had her, quote, perform on him while her aunt waited outside the room unaware. And like I said, I read the impact statement. She also said that he had her performing her in other situations as well. This is all by the age of 15, because she files her complaint at 15. So remember, in the documentary, they went out of their way to say, oh, but he wasn't charged with anything physical. Notice the word charged. Charged. And usually what that means is not necessarily that he didn't do it. It just means that they couldn't find enough evidence to be able to prove it in a court of law. And remember, this is what Drake Bell pled to: attempted endangering of children and disseminating harmful matter to juveniles. That's what he pled to. And if you know anything, if you watch any SVU, you know that people usually plead out to lesser charges than the original charges. So they went out of their way to say that it wasn't physical. It was just kind of it was an accident. It was a mistake. He was talking to a 12-year-old, didn't realize that she was 12 until she was 15. And then he realized that she was 15, and then he stopped immediately. But according to this girl, not only did he know when he was sending her all this problematic stuff and inappropriate stuff, but he also was physical with her. And this wasn't the only situation. There was other situations. I encourage you to go and read her impact statement so you can get the full story from her.